John David was the father of two girls, 6-year-old Coco and 3-year-old Eve. John David was also a widower. His beloved wife, Krista, had passed away 6 months ago now. She had kissed John and the girls goodbye after grabbing a bagel with cream cheese and a cup of coffee on her way out the door. And for some reason, John can't seem to ever forget that he had forgotten to put the creamer in her coffee before she'd left. It was one simple thing, not life-altering to him, but it was the world. To him, it was his last memory of his wife. "Oh, John, no creamer?" She scrunched her face up as she took a sip. "You hate me today, or are you just trying to kill me?" She laughed. "Oh, shit," he called out. "Dad, language," reminded 6-year-old Coco. "I know, sorry." He looked back at her. "Hold on, baby, and I'll run some out." "No, it's okay. I'm late. I'll find some way to suffer through." She giggled, and John waved goodbye. Someone else in a hurry and on the phone ran a stop sign just 5 minutes later, and he hit the driver's side door of Krista's car, pushing her into the passenger side, pinning her between both doors, just inches apart from each other. They said she probably died instantly, never knowing she'd been hit, killing her before she had time to realize what had happened. Her mug reading "World's Best Mommy," hand-painted by Coco, was found 30 yards away from the car on a grassy hill. Not a single scratch on it. John sat in the cold, dark room, remembering the scene. The police had come to his home. His brother was an EMT who had arrived at the scene and sent them to get him. There was no chance to say goodbye. The car was a mangled scrap of metal, with his wife ensnared inside of it. When they'd gotten married, they had decided that when children came along, John would be the stay-at-home dad. Krista's job had great benefits, plenty of vacation, and she earned much more than he did. They knew that they would be fine financially if he stayed with the girls, and Krista was reluctant to hire anyone else to watch over them. It was the perfect setup. He had been a teacher because he loved seeing young minds grow and learn, and little people become interested in history and math and geography, but he never knew the joy he would feel when it was his own children, seeing the world through their eyes for the very first time, how something as simple and ordinary as bubbles seemed like magic to a 3-year-old, and a pile of dried leaves could make a 6-year-old exuberant for hours. What they had not thought about was getting life insurance at their age. They were young and healthy, in the prime of their life. It seemed as though there was time for that. They had spoken of it, noted that it was something that they should think about doing soon, and now he was finding himself with his savings depleted, the funeral having cost more than he'd ever imagined. The mortgage payments coming out of it, food, card payments, credit cards. The list seemed endless. He tried getting hired at his previous school, but there was no position. He tried others, and again, no positions available. He'd even tried working as a substitute, and nothing. He was drowning. And then he saw an ad in a sketchy free paper at the corner gas station. He felt as though he was at the end of his rope. He answered it. He desperately needed the money. The light in the room came on. It had concrete walls, no windows, cold. There was nothing distinguishing about it except that it smelled like bleach and copper. His eyes were trying to adjust to the light. There were several, at least one in each corner of the room. More like a box, he thought, as he held up his hand to shield his eyes from the brightness. He saw, on the ceiling, 3 objects in what looked like glass boxes. The ceiling was about 9 feet tall, but he could make out what was in each box, and there was a pit in his stomach. Bingo Wilson was 25 years old. As he sat on the floor, it was cold and dark, and he was picking at his skin, shaking, itching, his muscles jerking. Even in the coldness, there was beads of sweat dripping from his forehead. He picked at a scab and wondered just what had gotten him to this point in his life. He, like everyone like him, could always point to their childhood. His no-good pops had a real fondness for pushing him around, especially after he'd come home late at night. He would rouse him from a deep sleep and berate him, asking if he thought he was a good dad. Did he provide for him, give him food, clothing, a roof over his head? And he'd always whisper, "Yes, Pops." And his dad would yell, "Bingo! Well, tell that to your ingrateful mom of yours." He yelled Bingo so often that Charlie's friends gave him the nickname, and he'd been known as Bingo ever since. "You tell that no-good mother of yours that if I want a meal on the table at 10, I'll get it at 10. If I want it at 3 a.m., I'll get it then. I pay for that food, this roof, and I ain't got to take no back talk from any woman. Ain't that right, son?" "Sure, Pops." "Bingo!" his dad would yell. "Hear that, Linda? Even your son thinks you're a steaming pile for back-talking me." His mom, while being a kind enough person, he guessed, never showed affection for Bingo. She never hugged him. She never cleaned a scrape. His pops told her not to, that all that coddling did was turn a boy into a weakling, and his son was going to be a man if it was the last thing he did. Bingo was certainly not coddled, and so he went looking for something to fill the hole, to ease the pain, to make him feel happy and carefree, and now he had a raging monkey on his back that would control him like a puppet. If it wasn't fed, it would feel as though Bingo's heart was being squeezed until it could burst, his skin crawling with the bugs the government had placed in him to spy on his thoughts, his brain screaming for more, the itching, the constant itching. Chemicals. He knew the CIA was spraying chemicals on him when he slept, so he rarely slept. Sometimes for days he would stay awake, waiting for them to come, but they never did until he finally lost the battle and fell asleep, even just for a moment. So he kept moving from alley to alley. He didn't make friends because he knew that they'd just report back to the government all his moves and his thoughts. He didn't need no spies in his life. He sat on the floor, picking at that scab, the one he'd pulled the bug from. He knew there was another one in there, if he could just get his fingernails underneath the skin. One night a man came to him, dressed real nice, like they do when they want something. This man made him an offer. Bingo asked if the government would stop placing bugs in him if he agreed, and the man said they would. The man said all Bingo had to do was sign some papers, come to this place and do what they told him to do, and he would earn his freedom. So he signed. The light suddenly came on, so bright that he couldn't see. He felt the wall behind him. Concrete, he thought. The room looked like it was on the sun itself, it was so bright. He couldn't even feel all the coldness now. The heat from the lamps was heating up the room. He covered his face and he looked up. On the ceiling were 3 clear boxes. He squinted and could finally make out what was inside them. That's when the voice came over the intercom. "Welcome to room 21. This red room will close to the public in 10 minutes. The cost of view is 50,000 Bitcoin. If it is not fully paid by the end of the 10 minutes, you will be blocked from participating. The rules are simple. First, if you wish to participate rather than just view, you must pay an additional 30,000 in Bitcoin to choose a weapon. In the Red Room 21, the rules are majority wins. If your choice loses, you will not receive your payment back. There are 3 weapons to choose from for each gladiator. Number 1, a hammer. Number 2, a 6-inch knife. Number 3, a bee, which is a 5-foot 9-inch staff primarily used in martial arts. Before the weapons chosen are revealed, the betting will begin. Bets begin at 20,000 Bitcoin. Per rules and regulation, there is no time limit given to the gladiators, with 50% of the money being given to the surviving gladiator and the remaining amount given to the highest bettor. One wall of each room opened, and they became essentially one room. Bingo and John saw each other as each stood up. A hammer dropped from the ceiling on Bingo's side. and a knife from John's. Red Room 21 is now closed to non-paying spectators.